Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating intersection in the modern economy. We're going to look at what happens when the turbulent, highly scrutinized green energy market collides head-on with the booming, cash-flush semiconductor hardware industry. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because, well, the contrast between these two worlds right now is just staggering. But, as you'll see, their futures are completely intertwined.
So, here's the big question we're tackling. What happens when the green energy boom meets the harsh reality of corporate finance? Today, we're contrasting the stark financial discipline that's basically required to survive in the maturing solar sector right now with the massive capital influx that's driving next-generation power hardware. We'll be pulling directly from recent SEC filings and industry reports to see how one sector is, really tightening its belt just to survive, while the other is out there building massive new facilities to capture tomorrow's tech demands.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the energy tech reality check. Second, SolarEdge's financial restructuring. Third, executive pay and governance. Fourth, the semiconductor innovation boom. Fifth, next-gen power hardware. And finally, number 6, powering the future. Let's get into it.
Part 1. The Energy Tech Reality Check.
Let's look at the really turbulent reality facing green energy companies right now, specifically by examining the recent SEC filings of SolarEdge Technologies. If we look at their stock performance from 2020 to 2025, it's pretty brutal. Imagine a baseline starting at 100 back in December 2020. By the end of 2025, the broader S&P 500 index had soared well past 180. But SolarEdge? They dropped all the way down to the 10 mark. Yeah, they even underperformed the broader Invesco Solar ETF. We're talking about a market that went from absolute exuberance to a harsh reality check, driven by high interest rates, excess inventory, and some major shifts in global trade dynamics.
Part 2. SolarEdge's Financial Restructuring.
So to survive this severe market turbulence and clear out all that excess channel inventory, SolarEdge couldn't just sit around and hope for a market turnaround, right? They had to pivot aggressively from a growth-at-all-costs mindset to intense corporate and financial discipline. And honestly, through this restructuring, they managed to pull off something huge. They decreased their net loss by over 77%. They went from a staggering $1.8 billion net loss in 2024 down to a $405 million net loss in 2025. Now, sure, it's still a loss, but cutting nearly $1.5 billion of bleed in a single year, that is a massive structural achievement.
Their management grounded this turnaround in 4 really measurable operational priorities. They didn't just want to stop the bleeding. They wanted to shift back to executing at scale. So they focused on strengthening their financial profile through super disciplined cash management, gaining market share in their core markets, continuing to compound their innovation, and really importantly, ramping up their U.S. manufacturing capacity to navigate those shifting trade environments we mentioned earlier.
But look, strengthening a financial profile often requires some really painful cuts. A crucial part of this strategy involved a $40.9 million decrease in personnel-related costs. That meant severe workforce reductions just to align their cost structure with the new, smaller market dynamics. On top of that, they made the tough strategic decision to completely divest their non-core PV tracker and energy storage businesses. Basically, they had to shrink the company's footprint to save the core business itself.
Part 3. Executive Pay and Governance.
Now, this intense financial discipline didn't just stop at the factory floor. It went all the way up to the executive boardroom. Because SolarEdge's market capitalization had plummeted to around $1.8 billion at the time of their review, their existing peer group for executive compensation was, frankly, no longer an honest benchmark. So what did the board do? They completely restructured it. They actually removed 10 of their largest previous peers and added 4 new, much smaller ones. The result of that, a massive 45% reduction in the median market capitalization of their peer group. They literally had to shrink the yardstick they used to measure their own executive success.
Anchoring this whole narrative of corporate austerity and accountability, SolarEdge's CEO, Shuki Nir, alongside his direct reports, voluntarily took a 10% base salary cut in 2025, and they committed to keeping it that way until the company actually reaches profitability again. At the exact same time, the board increased the CEO's stock ownership requirement from 4 times up to 5 times his base salary. This is textbook alignment, right? If the shareholders are feeling the pain, the executives absolutely must feel it too, and their future wealth has to be tied directly to the stock's recovery.
Part 4. The Semiconductor Innovation Boom. Okay, let's completely shift gears here for a second and contrast that intense cost-cutting we just saw in solar with what's happening in the underlying compound semiconductor sector.
While solar companies are shrinking their footprint and selling off assets, the hardware industry is physically expanding. Like they are building massive, state-of-the-art new plants. Take the newly opened multi-user silicon carbide facility, or MUSIC, down at the University of Arkansas. This place is the physical manifestation of an industry that is just gearing up for a massive, massive surge in demand for advanced power electronics.
And the financial dynamics here? Completely flipped. Let's look at Wolfspeed, a major leader in silicon carbide. Now sure, they've had to do a bit of their own restructuring and fab closures to cut quarterly losses, but overall they are leaning into a massive financial windfall. I mean, they recently received a tax refund of nearly $700 million. They're using this huge injection of capital to aggressively leverage their 200mm manufacturing footprint and advance really rapidly into high-growth applications. It's an environment completely defined by heavy capital expenditure, not contraction.
Part 5. Next-gen power hardware.
So what's the driving force behind this massive semiconductor boom? It's all about a shift toward exotic, next-generation materials that are specifically designed to handle the insane power loads of the future. A major breakthrough we're tracking right now is vertical gallium nitride, or GaN. You see, traditional silicon chips are just hitting their physical limits when it comes to managing power. Vertical GaN is this proprietary technology that actually conducts current vertically through the wafer, rather than horizontally across the surface. What you really need to take away from this is that it enables vastly higher operating voltages and much, much faster switching frequencies, all in a smaller physical footprint. Honestly, it's basically the holy grail for managing massive amounts of electricity efficiently.
And the coolest part is, we can see this innovation moving straight from the lab out into mass production. We're seeing advanced vertical GaN wafers from companies like onsemi, who recently launched this tech to the market, right alongside close-ups of Ivyworks 8-inch nanowire epi wafers, which show you the microscopic structures that make all of this possible. The semiconductor industry is quite literally manufacturing the physical building blocks of the next energy revolution as we speak.
Part 6. Powering the future. So we've explored two completely different worlds today, right? A solar industry forced into really painful restructuring, and a semiconductor industry flush with cash just building massive facilities. So how do they actually connect? Well, they're converging on the exact same future. The newly disciplined green energy companies like SolarEdge are stating explicitly in their filings that they're investing in high-growth adjacencies like AI data center power solutions. Meanwhile, hardware makers like onsemi and Wolfspeed, they're advancing their gallium nitride and silicon carbide tech to target those exact same data centers. The massive power demands of artificial intelligence are acting like this incredible gravitational pull, drawing both the restructured energy providers and the flush hardware innovators into the exact same orbit.
As Robert Frohl, the CEO of Wolfspeed, points out, the formula for the future really requires both sides of the coin. He noted that they are taking a disciplined approach to align the business with near-term headwinds, all while advancing into new, high-growth applications like AI data centers. Because true long-term value in this space is created only when you can successfully blend the rigorous corporate discipline learned during those brutal market downturns with the high-growth technological innovation of next-generation hardware.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to consider as we wrap up today. As these massive industries continue to mature and inevitably collide to power the AI revolution, what's going to be the ultimate driver of success? Will it be the strict corporate financial discipline we're seeing in the restructuring solar sector, or is it going to be the raw, capital-intensive hardware innovation we see pumping out of the semiconductor foundries? The reality is, the companies that can manage to master both are the ones that are truly going to power our future. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep your eyes on the power sector. It's moving faster than ever.